Revere's lantern beckons, we go, no matter where.
The 1st Battalion of the 186th Infantry Regiment responded at a moment's notice to the city of New Orleans ravaged by Hurricane Katrina.
I couldn't think of anything better to do with my time and our resources here.
They serve proudly and without complaint. Over the next half hour, you will see Southern Oregon's citizen soldiers heeding the call to serve their country.
From Newswatch 12, this is After the Storm, Oregon Responds. Here are Jennifer Seeker and Tim Conroy.
300 soldiers responded to the call to help after Hurricane Katrina pummeled the Gulf Coast.
We got the chance to travel with the 186th as the soldiers were deployed.
They boarded cargo planes in Klamath Falls and flew to New Orleans to keep order and help the suffering.
And it's not easy in a flooded city riddled with looters and disease. The feet of the soldiers of the 186th pound the streets night and day looking for looters and willing to help.
House to house knocking and seeing if there's anybody there, identifying if there are personnel in the house. If there are, they'll, see if there's anything that they need and recommend that, they look at leaving the area because there's not a lot of supplies that we can have them continue to stay.
And it's not an easy job. Water still covers most of the area of New Orleans the 186th patrols.
Water is going to dictate our entire mission.
While checking in these homes, the soldiers managed to get an 82-year-old woman to evacuate. She'd been staying behind with her dog. They got her dog to animal care experts and got her to a safe place. But besides protecting precious human lives, these soldiers are also guarding priceless art treasures.
No one was here to defend it or guard it or secure it.
Southern Oregon soldiers and private security officials are the only ones standing between looters and artifacts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They are all housed in the New Orleans Museum of Art.
I think, after a couple days and things settled, no one was here, there might have been a problem. But I think with everybody here now that it's under control.
And that's what the 186th is here to prevent.
We want to restore and maintain a lot of the history throughout New Orleans and not let it end up in the wrong hands.
Soldiers are keeping a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week watch on the museum. It contains such treasures as precious Fabergé eggs and a rare painting of the Madonna and Child.
The waters of Lake Pontchartrain still cover much of the area the 186th is patrolling. They aren't allowed to go in the water unless it's a life-and-death situation. The sludge is playing a central role in how our citizen soldiers do their job in New Orleans.
Water is everywhere in New Orleans. It covers homes and flood strip malls. Once dry cemeteries are now lakes, and caskets are washed hundreds of feet from their final resting places. Luxurious yachts lay smashed on city streets. The foul water is slowly pumped from low-lying areas.
They're going to be limited on a lot of the areas that they get to patrol because of the sheer amount of water.
Water is boss for the soldiers of the 186th. They can only go so far. Deep waters force them to turn their Humvees around and make simple tasks like checking this abandoned truck difficult. Soldiers cannot go into the putrid water unless it's a life or death situation. That's because the reeking liquid holds dozens of poisons.
Just have to keep an eye on things, watch for a sentinel case, watch for a first case of anything, and then we jump right on it.
Medics must watch for outbreaks of typhoid, cholera, hepatitis, yellow fever, and staph infections, to name just a few. Many of the animals swimming through the water in search of dry land are sick, but no one is sure with what. In this watery wasteland, ducks make their home in a flooded parking lot. Medics say that's a good sign because it means their food chain is intact. Water is everywhere in New Orleans. We're standing at an intersection. Water is up about 5 feet. And with so much water, there is a chance people will fall in, but medics say they're ready.
Decontaminate them, wash them off all over. Certainly we have power washers, we have chloride solutions, wash their clothes.
We have seen a few civilians coming out of the water asking for help.
Some emerge from the rank water with sores and infected cuts.
They're going to be looked at by, I'm sure, the CDC, by trained professionals, and a lot of the times they're started on antibiotics just because of what's in the water and the effect that it could have later on.
The water is receding more and more each day. It leaves behind a sludge that is presenting its own problems.
As it recedes, it dries, and you get some aerosolized crapola there. We're not quite sure what's in it there yet.
The dropping water levels could also reveal more death and destruction. Time will tell. For now, the soldiers of the 186th will navigate the best they can through the water that has drowned a storied city. Another threat is West Nile. New Orleans had a bad problem with the virus before the storm, and the standing floodwater is proving ample breeding grounds for mosquitoes.
Just another thing to worry about down there.
That's right. Rank is king for the military, and at the top of the 1st Battalion, 186th Infantry, is Lieutenant Colonel Todd Plimpton.
He has roughly 600 soldiers under him. Plimpton hails from Lovelock, Nevada, but says he's so dedicated to his regiment that he makes the 6.5-hour drive to Oregon without complaint. He has worked many Oregon fires and the Ashland flood, and is also a graduate of the University of Oregon Law School. Plimpton says a leader can't be great without lots of good people supporting him.
Taylor.
Every soldier needs a sergeant, so we assign them a sergeant, and they do what they're told. And I'll tell you, these young men out here and young women, we expect a lot from them, and generally they do a great job. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
One captain described Plimpton as a teddy bear 98% of the time and a grizzly bear the other 2%. Here he showed his softer side as he convinced his men to sing happy birthday to his 5-year-old triplets. And at the bottom of the food chain in the 186 are the privates. Some were on their very first deployment and learning quickly on the job. Private First Class Eli Michael is from Grants Pass and just graduated high school this spring. The 18-year-old joined the Guard in 2004 during his junior year. Michael had just finished his annual training in Idaho and he got the call. He's just hoping to stay out of trouble and learn everything he can.
I'm just going to follow my sergeants. They know what they're doing. They're going to teach me well. Hopefully I'm not out there, messing up, or hopefully I'm just doing the right thing.
Private First Class Michael says he had to mentally prepare for the death he would see, but he says he is proud of what he's doing.
We experience firsthand the taste of a soldier's life, and it's not easy. New Orleans looks like a war zone, but Southern Oregon soldiers are making it home. Even when they're not patrolling, members of the 186th are always on the move. They made their home in an air hangar, a zinc warehouse, and a community college during their deployment. But even when a cot is your bed and railroad tracks your powder room, these soldiers try to maintain some of the comforts of home.
You learn to, overcome it, find ways to make yourself comfortable.
Sergeant First Class Gene Turner knows some tricks after 20 years of service.
Remember to bring your flip-flops so you don't touch the ground, so your feet are, stay clean. And I always bring, my lotions and stuff like that, and your towels and stuff that I bring my own towels from home.
Soldiers swelter in the Louisiana heat and humidity, wearing long sleeves, pants, and heavy boots. On this mission, drinking water is not an option, it's an order.
Drink lots of water. That's all you can do. You can't really stay cool.
And constant nourishment is vital.
Right here I'm eating beef enchilada with refried beans.
When troops are deployed, they don't often eat off of plates. They eat out of a bag. This is an MRE, or a meal ready to eat. There are 24 flavors, and you never know what you're going to get.
Most of the time, if you get a new one, it's pretty good. Sometimes we get the same one every time because we don't get to choose which one we want. We just reach in, grab one, pull it out. Sometimes you get the same one every time and it starts getting real boring eating it.
With entertainment options few and far between, soldiers do what they can to pass the time.
Well, some of us, we brought books. Some of us brought cards.
All right, bub.
They have the luxury of cell phone use on this deployment, so many try to keep close contact with family back in Oregon. But perhaps the most common off-duty activity when you're going strong 7 days a week is napping whenever and wherever.
As much sleep as possible because we lose sleep.
And you need all the rest you can get when your mission is to rebuild lives and restore one of America's most treasured cities.
Despite the hard work, you hardly ever hear these soldiers complain. They have a lot of pride in service to their country and form a strong bond with their fellow soldiers.
But many say they're anxious for a hot shower and a hug from their loved ones. Very understandable. I think we felt the same way, and we just got a short taste of what they experienced.
Absolutely.
Looters have stripped New Orleans stores of many valuables.
Straight ahead, how the 1/186th deals with looting and how some victims are already rebuilding. You're watching After the Storm, Oregon Responds. When hundreds of thousands of people left town, looters moved in.
The evidence of the crime is everywhere, and many thieves are still at work. Part of the job of the 1/186 is to watch for looters, especially at night. Soldiers say gas stations and convenience stores were the most common targets, and thieves stole money and things they could quickly sell.
When we went in there and checked them all out, the buildings were all ransacked. Most of the cash registers and ATM machines were all ripped out, and there's food and all other stuff that got pulled out, and it's all spoilage on the floor, so it's not very pretty.
Sergeant Mishra says much of the damage was done after the initial break-in by people looking for food and water to survive. Soldiers report the looting to local authorities, and then they do the rest of the investigating.
Besides looters, the area the soldiers of the 1/186th Patrol is mostly deserted. They've rescued 2 people so far, but come across others who are trying to get on with their lives in their battered hometown. The owners of Double M Garden and Feed were checking out their store when soldiers from Southern Oregon stopped by. Like so many, the owners of Double M, Garden, Feed, and Pet are trying to hammer their business back together.
Just assessing the damage and stuff, see what all we need to do, you know.
Owner Blaine Strander lost 3 of his 8 stores during the storm. This store sits in the middle of the area Southern Oregon soldiers are patrolling. Most of the area the troops of the 1/186th Patrol is deserted, so coming across some people anxious to get their lives back together was a nice change, even if their news was sobering. Blaine says Katrina was not kind to his family.
I lost my house, totally lost it, but everybody else is fine.
He still hasn't seen what's left of his home due to roadblocks.
I couldn't get in right away, so I'm going to go down a little while.
For now, he and his co-workers and the needy friend they picked up along the way make do. Blaine says he'll be here long after the visitors from Southern Oregon head home.
Yes, I will. Born and raised here.
In exchange for a cold bottle of water and friendly smiles, Stranger gave the members of the 1/186th bags of dog food for the stray pets they come across.
And the regiment often finds abandoned animals. When people were evacuated from the city, they were not allowed to take their animals along with them to the shelters. So many cats and dogs were left behind to fend for themselves on the streets of the city. The soldiers found a white dog on one of their patrols and called the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Texas volunteers responded to transport the dog to a safe place. Volunteers say when many people evacuated, they left their animals tied up or in cages without access to food or water.
Well, the ones that we can take, they're taken. The ones we can't get to, yeah, we leave food and water for until we can get to them.
The Texas volunteers say they are extremely busy. They say the animals they capture will not be euthanized. They are taken to a shelter in Gonzales, Louisiana, until they can be adopted or hopefully reunited with their owners.
When soldiers from the 1/186th discover people left behind after the hurricane, they label them green, amber, or red. Green are ready and willing to evacuate. Amber are willing to go with some stipulations, and red are staying put. Those who want to evacuate are taken to various shelters, including this one in a convention center in Baton Rouge. Here they sleep, eat, and find medical care. They can also get help searching for lost loved ones. Many say they don't know what they'll do next.
Right now I'm just trying to make a decision on what direction I'm going to take and where I plan on being at. I really don't know right now, but I guess I'll come to that decision sometime this week.
Well, I'm not sure about myself. I know my mother and, the rest of my family, they're going back, but I think I'm going to decide to stay because I grew up out here.
We're alive. That's all that counts.
Directly across the street from the convention center is the Sheraton, where many wealthier evacuees are staying. The 2 locations were in stark contrast. The convention center housed almost exclusively African Americans on cots. Many Caucasians stayed at the Lush Hotel and had their pets with them at all times. There are many ways you can help the victims of Hurricane Katrina. Organizations are looking for donations and volunteers.
You can contact the Red Cross or Salvation Army. Those numbers are on your screen. Or also check our website at kdrv.com for more ideas on how you can help. Every single soldier had a history and a story to tell while we were embedded with the 186th. But one soldier in particular stood out. Captain Kelby McRae turned tragedy in his own life into a passion for his country.
Over to the museum. You want to drive us? Excellent.
Captain Kelby McRae is the Delta Company commander of the 186th. Right now, his men are in charge of protecting hundreds of precious artifacts in the New Orleans Museum of Art, as well as patrolling streets to keep the peace and help people in need. McRae is a Brookings police officer in civilian life, but his military ambition stretches back to when he was a teenager.
I've been in about 15 years now. I got in when I was a junior in high school, right after I turned 17 years old.
The military is a McRae family tradition. Captain McRae's father retired last year after decades of duty. His two sons followed proudly in his footsteps.
He encouraged whatever my brother and I wanted to do. He would back us up on that. When I got into the military, I know he was very proud, as well as with my brother.
Captain McRae's younger brother didn't decide the military was for him until a bit later in life. Eric McRae joined up after college and quickly became a platoon leader.
He got into the military and became an officer and then started his short career.
Eric McRae was called to duty in Iraq in 2003. He'd been serving in the sweltering desert heat for 2 months when some of his fellow soldiers were ambushed.
They got there to rescue them and got other vehicles. More IEDs went off and killed my brother and 2 other guys from his Humvee.
McRae says he was breathless when he got the news from his father.
When he told me, it was more of disbelief. Like, no, are you sure? You know, maybe it was somebody else. Maybe they just think. So I really didn't believe it, and it was a very surreal feeling.
The family then had the solemn task of informing Eric's wife of just 2.5 months.
Your life is just totally changed in an instant.
Suddenly, McRae was an only child, and his wife Tanya and parents were deeply afraid for his safety.
Not only if we lost you, but then on top of that have lost, our only other son.
McRae has a baby boy named Seth and a young daughter, Chloe, to worry about too. But he says his brother's death doesn't scare him, it inspires him.
He did so much and gave his life that you can do a whole lot without, doing as much as what he did. So it kind of pushes you to do even more, to kind of try to live up to that.
This mission gives him a chance to help Americans in need and honor his brother's spirit.
Eric McRae's story lives on even after his death. Singers Toby Keith and Ted Nugent were on a plane from Kuwait City after performing from the troops. Eric's flag-draped casket was on board with them. Both artists say they were deeply moved by the experience and have talked to the McRae family and told Eric's story in radio and magazine interviews.
The heart and soul of the 186th is the regiment's chaplain. Chaplain Major Ron McKay has been with the battalion 17 years and has been the pastor of Rouge Community Bible Church for 24 years. He's there to counsel the troops, lead religious services, and advise the commander on the morale of the troops. Chaplain McKay is always on the move talking to his men, and he sees a biblical purpose in this particular mission.
What it means to me is what the prophet Jeremiah said in the scriptures. He was the weeping prophet, and he lived through the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. And he wrote the saddest book in the Bible, Lamentations. And it said in that book that here lies a city destroyed, and we're here in New Orleans facing that same destruction. And we weep with the people of New Orleans, and we weep with them, and we've come to help them and to do the very best we can do to stand by their side in their time of need. And right in the middle of the saddest book in the Bible is, "Great is thy faithfulness," and God is faithful, and he will rebuild the city, and we'll be here to help that happen. And it means a lot to be here for me personally.
Chaplain McKay holds several services every Sunday, and the message you just heard was the theme of his sermon last Sunday.
The chaplain says the troops have christened the community college in which they are staying Jeremiah to give them hope and remind them of the honor of their mission. And the soldiers of the 186 were called to duty without notice on a holiday weekend.
But most responded willingly and proudly. Their own words on the mission to help Americans next. You're watching After the Storm, Southern Oregon Responds.
While this was very tragic and unfortunate, it gave us an opportunity to be able to actually come in and help our own countrymen.
Though their deployment is grueling, Southern Oregon soldiers in the 186th, they're proud to serve. Many of these soldiers have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Egypt.
But they say this mission close to home was one they went on willingly and with a feeling of patriotic duty.
You know, when Paul Revere's lantern beckons, we go, no matter where. And certainly the Guard is prepared to do natural disasters on the home front.
Going through my mind is the devastation these people have gone through, and it makes me feel good to be able to come down here and help them out.
Go ahead.
To me, this is a mission that I feel like I really want to come on because I want to help these people down here.
We're almost there.
We usually go into other countries helping other people, and now we're able to do the same for our own.
We got into the safe. We know that we're here to be able to stop people from coming in and looting, to be able to help the residents make a transition a little bit easier when they come back. And so they're proud of what they're doing, and they're happy to do it.
My wife really never approved of the military, but it's the only thing she's actually been proud of, so it's actually something kind of neat to do. She's never really liked a lot of the stuff we do, but this is something to help people.
So you'll be seeing us more often here around the area.
Good.
I'm just glad that we finally get to do our job, come down and help people.
It's the first humanitarian mission I've ever done, and I'm proud to be doing it because there are a lot of people who are without, and they need us.
You know, if we can come here and help the people out, and that's a good thing, so I'm all for it.
You know what? These are Americans. These are their homes. We're Americans. I couldn't think of anything better to do with my time and our resources here.
The members of the 186 treated us with great respect and care as we lived among them, and we want to thank them for the opportunity and wish them a safe trip home.
Yeah, they have a lot of work ahead. To learn more about our special coverage after the storm, Oregon Responds, head to our website at kdrv.com. That's also where you can learn more on how to donate to victims of the hurricane.
We want to thank you for joining us, and we leave you now with scenes of Oregon citizen soldiers responding to the call of duty.